Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Ted Dabrowski. He's the Vice President of Policy at the Illinois Policy Institute. And Ted, this week we've got the big public meeting. This is reminiscent of the Obama Republican healthcare meeting, isn't it? Governor Rauner with House Speaker Madigan, Senate President John Cullerton meeting November 18th to discuss how to reach a budget agreement that has been months in the offing. And it was Madigan and Cullerton who wanted the meeting to be public initially. Rauner said no, but he's come around on that. This is going to be so much political theater, or are we going to see real movement?
No, it's only theater, right? There's no way that they can, in public, if they can't agree in private, they're not going to have this argument in public. So I think it's theater. It's a show. I don't know how it's going to end up, and I don't know who's a winner and a loser.
The only thing I would say is it's nice to have Madigan in the public, right? In the public domain. This is somebody who rarely shows his face in daylight, does not talk to the press very much. And so to have him in that arena where he can't run and hide could be interesting.
I think you're hitting on the point that I was going to make a little bit later on as we develop the issue, is that the biggest thing that we've seen out of all these debates is that Madigan's out of his hole. For decades, he's been operating in a bunker somewhere, doesn't come out and talk. He makes people do what he wants. And now suddenly he's the guy that's got to be out there performing, and he can't hide behind his movements.
What's your sense of where the turnaround agenda, the governor's much vaunted, much talked about turnaround agenda, is currently? It seems to me that Governor Rauner has been offering compromise after compromise after compromise, watering down the turnaround agenda on multiple turns. And are we at all, or should we at all be concerned that we're on the cusp of compromising away anything resembling structural reform and still getting a revenue enhancement, which is political speak for a tax increase as the way to settle this budget impasse?
There's no doubt, I think, that we have to take into account the starting point, and that's that Madigan has supermajorities on both the House and the Senate. So, Rauner's power to get his turnaround agenda through requires a lot of politicking. So on the turnaround agenda, I think there's no doubt that there has been some compromises. I think Rauner has some realization that he can't go for everything in one shot. Maybe his attempts were maybe too big initially, but I don't think that he's giving up on his overall agenda, and he's holding strong. He's making some pretty small compromises. He has made small compromises this week, but I don't think that they're significant. What they are is that they're politically significant in that, as we said, he's put Madigan on the defensive. Madigan lost a couple of votes, and now Madigan has to come out and start defending himself.
Well, let's talk about one of the compromises this week, and that was with respect to child care funding, where Governor Rauner made a bit of a compromise, but at least if I'm to read his press releases correctly, achieved a bit of a victory. Right.
So when the state didn't have money, one of the things that got cut was payments for child care to child care providers. And so, of course, that was a huge political move taken by the Democrats. As here's Rauner. He doesn't care about people, kind of thing. And so that's been in play for a few months. Well, now the legislature was about to undo his cuts, and at the same time, they're going to take away his power to unilaterally, through executive order, change those things. And so what he did is he negotiated with it looks like he negotiated with Duncan, one of the Democrats, to oppose that legislation. And so basically, and to do so, Rauner had to undo some of those cuts, a majority of them. So in a way, Rauner had to give up what he was hoping, not what he was hoping, but he was giving up on being tough on the budget. But in the end, Duncan, by supporting Rauner, hurt Madigan's attempts to hurt Rauner, if I said all that right.
Yeah, right. I know
it's complex.
It's a little bit of three-dimensional chess, right? So, yeah, and you had a little bit of an increase in the income requirement, or essentially to reduce those who are eligible for some of these state-funded child care services, so to reduce the cost a little bit overall and really try and focus on those truly in need versus those who may have enough resources to figure it out themselves because, obviously state-funded childcare is a good, but in a world of scarcity, there's always more demand for good things than there is supply. And this is one of the things sometimes it's difficult to get people to understand. And so to that point, I wonder what you think is the best realistic policy outcome on this budget from a tax and spend structural reform versus revenue increase dynamic. What's the best we can hope for realistically so that we're controlling our expectations?
Well, I think the Democrats again can do whatever they want because they have supermajorities. They're not all in sync with each other right now, so that's why they have not passed a tax hike on their own. They could if they wanted to. And
Rauner's challenged them to go ahead and do just that if they don't want to bargain on structural reform.
Exactly. So I think Rauner's right in that. Hey, Democrats, if you think that tax hikes are the right thing to do, just do it. They don't need Rauner to do the tax hikes. But if Rauner is going to be part of a compromise, big picture deal, then I think he's right. The only way we're really going to grow our economy. Look, who pays taxes? People and businesses. And the bigger, the faster the economy is growing, the more people that are in Illinois, the more people that we attract to Illinois, the more that businesses we attract into Illinois, the more tax revenues we'll have. And so as long as we have horrible policies, people leave, companies leave, and our tax base goes down. So he's absolutely right to promote a growth agenda which attracts people and businesses. And so if they're going to reach a big agreement, he's going to have to get some of those reforms like workers' comp reform and perhaps freezing property taxes so that you can have people stay in Illinois. Those are, I think, good things. And, whether then the Democrats force a tax hike on top of that, well maybe that's part of the grand agenda.